What is up, you guys? Welcome back to the Ultum Nature Systems channel. Today I'm going to be scaping this 90SS aquarium. This is an all-new footprint of super shallow tanks that we just came out with, and it is about 33.3 gallons of total water volume, and the dimensions are 35.4 by 22 by 9.8, so about 5 inches shorter than the standard 90S aquarium. Behind me, we have the other variant of the super shallow tanks. This is the 120SS, and this one has about 48 gallons of total water volume. But today, I'm just gonna be scaping this 90SS. I got some really nice hardscape set aside. I got some dragonwood and some black lava rock, and I think I'm gonna be trying to utilize the super shallow footprint of this tank to mix both aquatic and terrestrial growth in my plant selection. So stay tuned, you guys. I'm gonna be scaping this tank, and I hope you enjoy. So I'm finished with the woodwork on this tank. I used a lot of this dragonwood to make this kind of big swooping arch right here. To complement the dragonwood that I used inside of the scape, I found this sun-bleached manzanita outside, and it kind of blends in pretty nicely into here. And I used it to kind of just exaggerate this swooping movement that my dragonwood already built. Originally, when I said what I was gonna do with the scape, I mentioned that I was gonna be using black lava rock. However, I changed it over to Marsh Stone for this. I think that I'm gonna be doing some pretty high flow in this tank, and the Marsh Stone will just be better for that because it comes from a naturally higher flow environment in the first place. So I'm gonna come in with my Marsh Stone next, and then I'm gonna come in with my substrate. So I will see you guys then. So I got a little bit of contrasoil extra fine black, and I definitely want the hardscape to be the central focal point. So I'm using a very light amount of contrasoil and just filling in these back sections here. But I want to keep this front area as well as the center area pretty free of contrasoil. So I think I might just be going in with my sand or my gravel in these sections here. I'm coming in with some contra sand bora, and I'm just going to be doing a super light layer in the front. I find that doing a thin layer just kind of exaggerates that front to back depth that we really are looking for in aquascapes like this. So now I'm coming in with some contra sand sequoia, and this is this bigger gravel just to kind of add a little bit of gradient between our Marsh Stone and our bora. And once this is wet, it's gonna have a wide variety of colors in it. I'm just gonna be bringing this around the edges of our rock work. And lastly, for a final bit of variation in the substrate layer, I'm coming in with some contra sand Tahoe. And this is just gonna be that super fine gravel. I'm just gonna be sprinkling this on top of the sequoia. And it does look a bit light right now, but once it gets wet, it's actually gonna darken to a similar color as the sequoia. So that is it for the hardscape of this tank. I'm now gonna prep some plants off camera, and I'll be back with you guys once it's ready. It is a couple days later and I'm finally ready to start planting this 90SS tank. Looking back at the hardscape that I did, I'm super pleased with how it came out. I love how the manzanita kind of complements this dragonwood log structure that I sort of built. And I'm really enjoying this cave in the front too, so I kind of want to keep the key elements of this scape once I start planting. So I chose some plants, a lot of rhizome plants and some terrestrial plants, a couple carpeting plants and a couple lower plants. So I got a lot of bulbitis chosen out. So I think the first thing you guys are going to see is me kind of placing that bulbitis in areas to give this log a very natural effect. So stay tuned, you guys. I hope you enjoy. So now that I'm done with planting my mini bulbitis, I'm gonna move on to planting S. repens. I think I'm just gonna plant this sort of in the midground on the right and the left side, and then kind of in some of the cracks of the rocks. And then I'm gonna sort of fade forward with my carpeting plants afterwards. So now that I'm done planting the S. repens, the next plant I am going to be planting is this Juncus repens. This is this cool grass-like plant. I think it's going to add a nice pop of like lighter color. I'm just going to try to break up some of these sections where I planted super heavy with the S. repens. So the next plant I'm going to be planting in the midground is Sagittarius subulata. And I like this because it is a little bit darker than the Juncus repens, so it'll be more similar to this bulbitis that I planted previously. So I'm going to use this to kind of break up some of the midground plants that we previously planted. So that is it for my midground plants. Next, I'm coming in with some dwarf hairgrass. I'm just going to start planting this as a gradient from my midground to my foreground. I'm not using too much of this, so I'm just going to be putting this sort of in the cracks of these stones where it's barely going to be in contact with contrasoil. So while I am scaping, I'm using the all-new UNS Pro Aquascaping tweezers. These are super ergonomic. It's got this nice big cutout in the middle for finger feel, and it feels very nice when you're planting. It's got a little bit of weight to it, but it's still super easy to use. So that's making my life easier when I am planting these super small carpeting plants and these finicky plants. The point on these tweezers is pretty small as well, so I can really pull them away very nicely from some of these hairgrass pieces that I'm planting into the sand, which I'm sure you know can be a bit tricky at times. So the next carpeting plant I'm going to be planting, and the last one, is going to be Glossostigma. Now I'm just taking this and I'm just going to kind of weave this between some of the hairgrass pieces that I already planted, just because I like the darkness of these leaves. I think it's going to be a really cool sort of color gradient to the foreground plants. The next plant I'm going to be planting is this Persicaria hydropiper. It's this really cool terrestrial plant, almost looks like purple bamboo, and I'm going to be planting this in this back section here just to get some like height in this terrestrial section. And while I'm planting, I'm going to be leaving a little space to put my atomizer into, because I definitely am going to want that ambient humidity in this immersed section on this tank. So upon looking at my tank, I think I want to break up some of the bulbitis a tiny bit. I think I'm going to add this Selaginella wallichi. This is this really cool feathery leaf shape, and I am just going to add this in the back section here to kind of break up some of the mass of bulbitis that I have going on. So that is it for my planting of this 90SS tank. I ended up planting a bit heavier than I originally thought, but I'm super happy with how it turned out. In the background, I chose to add that Selaginella wallichi to kind of contrast this Bulbitis Mini. I think it looks great. I think once it fills in, it's really gonna be a nice, lush sort of bush look to this back section here. I'm super stoked with the mid-ground too. I think that the Juncus repens, the S repens, as well as the Sagittarius subulata is gonna be a really nice mix of plants that's really gonna fill in these sections here and here. I think it should look great. In the foreground, again, I chose to do hairgrass, and I wanted to keep this pretty light just to kind of add a little bit of variation and details around the base of this primary hardscape structure. So the hairgrass is gonna be this nice leafy green plant, and then the glossostigma is just gonna pull in some of those dark colors a little bit, kind of connect it back to the Bulbitis that I planted so heavily from the beginning. I think it should look great. I'm gonna add some equipment to this tank. We opted for a Delta 120 as well as a Titan 1 and a Pro hanging kit on this. So I will be back with you guys once this tank is clear and once the equipment has been added. We are back looking at this 90SS tank. It has been the weekend and the water was a bit cloudy when we came in. It had a bit of tannins in it from this dragonwood, but we did a water change. The water is clear now. I'm gonna give you guys a quick rundown on what equipment we chose to use on this tank. For our filtration, we chose to use a Delta 120. This is providing us a lot of flow along the front section of this tank, as well as just all around the aquarium. I think this is gonna be perfect for this tank. I like in these shallow tanks to really use a lot of water because it helps with the air exchange. On our Delta 120, we chose to use an inline diffuser. So we are adding a bit more CO2 into the water column. And I like the inline diffuser because it's not gonna cramp up the inside space of this tank with a standard sort of diffuser. We also chose to include 2 atomizers in the back section here, and this is just gonna kind of give us that little bit of ambient humidity that these plants in the back are really gonna enjoy. Primarily our Bulbitis Mini and our Stellagenella Wallichi. They're really gonna benefit from this added mist and humidity circulating around this back section here. For the lighting on this tank, we chose to use a UNS 90 Pro hanging kit. So we got our Pro bars mounted into our stand underneath this tank. And for the light itself, we're using a single Titan 1. We've used this previously on some pond tanks and some of our show tanks that we did for Aquascaping this year. We were super happy with how they grew out. So I'm expecting about the same on this tank here. Overall, I'm really excited to watch this tank grow, and I think once this back section gets a bit more height to it, it's gonna really look cool with this hardscape that I chose. Stay tuned for future content, you guys. We'll be sure to post some updates of this tank as it grows in, as well as maybe what we're gonna stock it with in terms of fish or inverts. So stay tuned for that. And that's gonna be it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in future content.